It's been 30 years since the original Scream, and now Sidney Prescott has her own 17-year-old daughter. This wasn't the plan for Scream 7 initially, but the controversy between movies meant we had to say goodbye to the leads from 5 and 6. And I'm sure that turned out just fine. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
We're back.
Wait, are you quoting the Scary Movie 6 trailer?
Did they say that?
Yes, I believe
okay.
Marlon Wayans. I think I've got the right Wayans brother, but I think he says it in the start of the trailer. It doesn't look very good, Tim. It looks terrible. Just, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked about it on the preview episode, but I was like kind of interested because I was like, well, I mean, there's funny people involved in that, and the old ones have like some, problematic stuff by today's standards, but maybe this is like an interesting way to kind of reinvent themselves. And then like the first joke in the trailer is like
yeah, let me jump in there. You said problematic by today's standards. Yes, this new one's still problematic by today's standards.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I was saying. Like, I thought like, okay, well, maybe, it'd be interesting to see what like a newer maybe version taking those kind of things into considerations, and instead they're just kind of leading into like, nah, we're just gonna be the same thing we were before. All right.
It's only been 30 years, but yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, 26 in their case, I guess. But yeah, see, it's a horror movie podcast. We're here today to talk about Scream 7. Speaking of 30 years later, in fact, they mention in this movie that it's been 30 years since Scream 1, which, did that make you feel old, Tim? Because it made me feel old.
No.
Oh, it did. I mean, the fact that the main character from Scream now has like a 17-year-old daughter, which I do. Actually, quick question before we get into anything else here. That means she was born before Scream 4.
The daughter?
Yeah. Do you remember in Scream 4 any mention of her having a baby?
No, I guess not.
Just point out, they're always vague about what kids she had once they started mentioning it, but like this one would have existed in some form before Scream 4 came out, so
yeah. I guess I didn't think about it, but yeah, you're right. That is that seems a bit weird.
Yeah, because that was 16 years ago. I'm sure there's some wonky tales like, well, Scream 4 set a year before it came out or something. Someone's going to say something like that. I don't know. Maybe
sure.
I don't remember how specific they were. Anyway, we're going to talk about Scream 7. We'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers. And of course, if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, hit the like button. Helps us out a bunch if you do. And of course, you can support everything over at Patreon and get bonuses. But I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So yeah, Scream 7, a lot of turmoil going into this one. There was the firing for reasons which I don't think we want to get into today, but let's just say the unjust firing of the previous actor, the star, Melissa Barrera from the last two, and then Jenna Ortega kind of, found a way to nope out. Basically, after that, whether that was an intentional choice to get away from the controversy or it was just happenstance, I don't know. I think maybe that was like two things. That to me felt like this is a very convenient reason for me not to go back to that right now. And went off to go do like Wednesday season 2 or whatever else she was doing at the time. So we're back to Neve Campbell as Sidney. Now Sidney Evans, because she got married. And I guess there's definitely a distinct feeling of, this is just going to the most obvious thing ever, that she has a teenage daughter now who is her age from when she was in Scream 1, and we're going to do more kind of callbacks and nostalgia stuff, and we're doing kind of the typical kind of, it's almost like, I mean, see if the last two hadn't happened, this could have been Scream 5. This could have been just how they started off with coming back. It's like, hey, she's got a teenager now, and that's where we're going to focus everything. But obviously 5 and 6 did happen, and there's references to them, although notably not to the characters who are missing, just the broad idea of the events happening. But yeah, like I said, we'll start spoiler free and we'll obviously get into everything in a bit. So going into this movie, reviews were looking pretty negative before the weekend, and there was a lot of middling buzz, shall we say. Some saying it was the worst in the franchise. It has the worst Rotten Tomatoes score in the franchise, although some of the ones that I think are not very good have very overly high RT scores. So
well, I say this is a movie for the fans, not the critics.
Very good, Tim. Very good. But yes, without further ado, Tim, what did you think of Scream 7?
Oh yeah, it sucks. I guess admittedly I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder going into this because I really quite enjoyed the last two movies, 5 and 6. And for me, especially the last one, it kind of felt like a little bit of a breath of fresh air because we're, kind of getting away from like some of the nostalgia legacy stuff. We have this, good new group of characters that I quite enjoy and I want to see their story continue. And, like you said, all the behind the scenes stuff, left a, pretty bad taste in my mouth and everything. So, yeah, it's not like I was like, I'm not going to see this movie or whatever. Like, I was like, I'm still going to go and I'm going to hope for the best or whatever. But to me, going in, I was just like, I was kind of bracing myself because it's like, they're, not really doing the kind of, doesn't appear to be like following through with the stuff that I actually quite liked about the last couple of ones. But you always hold out hope. It's like if the movie's good, that stuff doesn't matter. That can transcend what your expectations or your hopes are. But unfortunately, I don't think there were any expectations met. I just think this is one of one of these cases of they were doing something interesting and they just pivoted to do the like blandest, most safe, like, it feels like a corporate, decision, like, let's not rock the boat too much. Let's get the original star back that, people know and, recognize. And like you're saying before, like the stories, it's kind of like just this, very safe, easy thing where it's like, well, the character you remember now has a daughter and they're like the way that she was in the first movie, I mean, it's not just this franchise. Obviously, this is like something that, they do in like every goddamn like movie now, it's like the whole, shitty Rise of Skywalker,
it
bullshit.
Seemed
like
novel in 1998 when Halloween H2O did she's got a son and he's the age she was in the first Halloween, and things are happening. But like now it's just like, we've seen this done in like so many things now. Yeah.
Which interestingly enough, another Kevin Williamson vehicle.
That one particularly, yeah.
But like, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily like the worst thing in the world. It's not like a super tough watch. Like, like I guess at the end of the day, it's like okay. There's some stuff that I thought was pretty egregious and stupid, and when we get into spoilers, I have a lot to say about the killer reveal. I think this is one of the dumbest and weakest reveals in the like series. Which I know I was talking to a friend, they're like, oh come on, like 3 is like stupider, and it's like, well, it might be like a stupider story, but like at least it is a story. Like I feel like they kind of just forgot to really build up this character and give them like motivation and stuff, and like I feel like even when they're explaining why they're doing what they're doing, they kind of just like trail off and like forget it, and I don't know, that it was just dumb. I will say there's like a couple of good set pieces and kills, so it's like not without some merit, I suppose. Like I think there's like 1 or 2 pretty memorable deaths and some decent gore, so there's stuff like that there. But yeah, I mean, I can't really say that there is much else about it that really caught me. Again, everything just feels like a very bland kind of like, let's get some fan service and not really rock the boat too much kind of stuff going on in here, and it just makes for a very kind of boring movie. I wouldn't say it was like the toughest watch in the world. Like it was, there was like, some good performances and stuff, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little too generous because I do still think it was a bad movie. But yeah, I don't know. It's a dud. And it's kind of annoying though because it seems like it is kind of breaking records, like, and making lots of money and stuff. So I'm assuming that we're gonna get an 8th one, obviously. But I'm sure that they're not going to pivot and do something more interesting. They'll probably just be playing into more of this kind of stuff. I don't know.
well, it's going to be the daughter going to college, isn't it? Because then they can do Scream 2 nostalgia more, right? It's like, oh, it's a couple of years after Scream 1, so we're doing Scream 2 stuff, but, 30 years later. Yeah, this movie is pretty bad. It's kind of deceptive as well. I think it's like mediocre on the surface, and there's a couple of okay kills, and that's like fine, whatever. Like nothing, There's a couple also that are kind of lame as well, to be fair. But like that is whatever it is, right? But there's stuff on the surface that's super bad, like the absolute just like abhorrent nostalgia bait is like just at this point like such a turn off to me. We have went back to the house from the end of the first movie now in like 4 sequels in one way or another. We had the movie set in 3, they were there in 4, they went back there in 5, and then they're here again in 6. Like we've done it so many times at this point, and that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as that stuff goes. So that's at the surface level, and then I think underneath that, you were kind of alluding to it with the reveal of the killer and all that, and I think that's a big problem. It's a mess. It doesn't make any sense, and I've been on record in the last couple of reviews. My least favorite part of Scream post the first one is I think all of the killer reveals kind of suck. I think all of their motives suck. And I was really critical. I mean, even though I enjoyed a lot of the set pieces in 6, which is a better movie than this, my biggest complaint was, the reveal of the killers and like why they were doing what they were doing was just like, whatever, I don't care. Like the whodunit element of Scream is something that I'm long over, but this is the worst of it. This is like somehow even worse than like, and the comparison to 3 is quite interesting because I think it feels equally bad at first, but they go in different directions of bad. Scream 3 goes in, this convoluted reason the killer has is so stupid and I hate it, but at least they're trying to give him a reason. Here it's like, just cause. And so we'll get to it in spoilers, obviously. I don't want to talk about it yet, right? And then there's just weird things that don't make sense, like Ghostface shouldn't have superhuman strength at points because it's meant to be a real person under there, so that's a problem at times. There's just like sometimes just a weird like oversight in decision making that just feels like a plot contrivance so they can have the next scene, even though I'm like in the moment going, well, you checked that, right? No, of course I didn't check that, even though it's the most obvious thing to check in the scene. But I'm being vague because otherwise spelling. But so all of this is to say that it's just not very good, and when it's particularly egregious, it's trash. So yeah.
I think a big thing that kind of irked me about this one too is it kind of feels like the first one that doesn't really have like a take, like, because obviously since the beginning of the franchise, it's been this meta examination of like horror and horror movies, and there's always stuff that they can do, like the first one obviously sets everything up, but then you have like the second one talks about sequels, and the third one talks about trilogies, and like the fourth one talks about reboots, and then like the fifth and sixth one, they talk about stuff like fan culture and legacy sequels and all those kind of things. This was the first one where it's like, it's not really saying anything about horror movies, and so, some of them, to be fair, like are quite thin. Like it wasn't always equal in terms of how successful it was doing that stuff, but they were always at least trying to sort of at least tie it into an idea of like, oh, this is poking fun at this type of movie. This doesn't feel like it's doing it. Kind of, and the few meta things it brings up tends to just be kind of leftovers from what they were doing in the last couple. Well, it's kind of funny because like I feel like the meta things that are in this are just about how Sydney wasn't in the last movie, and it feels like they're kind of
the amount of times someone says, "I can't believe you were in New York." I'm like, shut up. Like, you sound like an annoying fan. Like, there's no reason for her to be there. It was actually refreshing they let her go and didn't drag her into the movie aside from a little phone call cameo. So here we are.
And like, it feels like the movie has like a bad reaction to the last movie, and it kind of feels like it's, trying to like, show favor to fans that were upset about the last one. But I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think there was like a ton of outrage from people about the last one. Like, I'm sure there were some people that were upset, but the way they make it seem is like, fans like could not believe she was in the last one, and as someone who liked the last one, I kind of found it offensive every time they, I feel like we're kind of poking fun at it, It feels like a mandated thing. It's like they're trying to demonize the last one because they want everyone to forget if they happen to like. No, I don't think the last one
The last one I think was kind of 50-50. I think some people liked it, some people didn't. I don't think there was some outcry necessarily because Sydney wasn't in it, like in a main role. If anything, my complaint was, why the hell is Courtney Cox even in it? At that point, I was like, get rid of all the characters from the original movies, because it just feels weird dragging them back out. Especially, you know, it's like, you know, I at a certain point, I'm like, it's just kind of weird at this point where we're like, hey, we're doing movies where characters are, you know, in their 50s and 60s showing up to reprise roles that they were playing in their 20s and 30s. And it's just kind of, you know, it feels a little, and admittedly here, it's like, okay, the killer's coming after them regardless of what age they are, that's fine. It's not quite like Indiana Jones where I'm like, oh, this is stupid that he's 70, 80 years old and he's still pretending to be jumping on things and whatnot. But it just, I don't know, it just makes me feel a bit weird and like, just, I don't know, it just feels depressing and cynical and just like, oh, this is all we do is just drag out things from years ago because we have no ideas anymore.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, I don't understand how people get, like, excited about this kind of stuff, because, like, to me, I don't know, I just find it kind of depressing, like, you know, seeing how much, like, these people have aged. Like, you know, I love Harrison Ford, but I don't want to see, like, you know, 70-something, you know, 80-something-year-old Harrison Ford, like, jumping around and, you know, trying to, you know, still do these action roles. And, you know, I mean, same thing for, you know, any of these kind of like iconic, you know, stars or whatever. Like, again, it's all right if you want to maybe, like, I feel like you kind of get maybe the one movie to do that, and, you know, like, it would have been fine. Again, you know, they do this the one time, and then, hey, then you can make comments on, like, oh, we're doing the legacy sequel thing. But, like, yeah, at this point, we're past it. Like, we don't need to keep doing it.
If there was something to actually say, if there was actually a story about how a character in their older age is now, like, I don't know, struggling with what they went through when they were younger and, like, finding, you know, if there was actually saying something about someone who'd grown up with what, like, Sydney had done in her past. But this entire movie, it just kind of felt like on autopilot of, like, oh yeah, she's just kind of a mix of, like, you know, Scream 3 where she's kind of being cautious, but she's also a bit more open to, you know, having a life. And, you know, because, you know, we do the thing where someone calls her and she's got the little voice recognition, she records, like, she clearly has just like a process. She's bored hearing calls from Stab fans at this point. In fact, the one comment I saw about this movie that kind of, like, stuck out to me is that someone said that, I don't remember who, so forgive me, I think it was one of the reviewers, one of the blurbs that I read on, like, Rotten Tomatoes, but one of the reviewers said that this is not a Scream movie, they made a Stab movie. And
interesting. Yeah.
Obviously, it's not an exact science, but, like, you kind of get the point they're making, where it's like, yeah, this is the meta thing that the other movies were supposed to be kind of poking fun at. This is just kind of doing it and try to disguise it in a mother-daughter relationship, which actually gets me to another problem I have with this movie.
I was just about to bring this up, but yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's the exact same thing. I probably agree with what you're going to say as well, but the problem that I wanted to get at is that this movie, like, to a detriment to the rest of the characters. Now, some of them I don't think I was ever going to like anyway, but there's a whole group of teenage characters, like, you know, the daughter's friends, and there's, like, other characters who show up and whatnot, and they're all shoved to the side, and all we ever focus on is Sydney and her daughter Tatum, who of course is named after the character from the first movie, right? Sydney's friend. So it's like every time, like, there's a chance of, like, building up the ensemble or doing anything with them, it feels like it's pushed aside. We're only focusing on them. That's all we care about. All we care about is Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. We're not allowed to focus on anyone else. Right. To the point where certain characters just are gone for the third act. They're just not involved. And then it's like, oh, you just had nothing for them to do. Why were they even here? Like, it felt like a complete waste of everyone's time.
Yeah. The final act feels bizarre in, like, how little there is of certain characters, and, like, especially because it seems like they're at a point where, you know, they're all kind of around together, and then, like, it's not like they go off super far or whatever, but, you know, they just, like, can't find each other. It's weird. But what I was gonna say, and I don't know if you'll agree with me, but I kind of found the relationship between Sydney and Tatum kind of frustrating, because it just feels like so forced that they would have this conflict. And, like, I don't know, to me it just didn't really feel believable, the fact that, like, you know, she keeps saying, like, you never told me about this, or, like, about your life or whatever. And it's like, really? Like, yeah, like, all this crazy stuff happening, you never like sat down and like told your kid about it. Like,
let's remove like Cindy from the example here for a second, right? There's a line early on where Cindy's talking to the friend slash neighbor, right, played by Anna Camp. And she's like, oh, we're going through a rough patch with Tatum. She's like, she's asking questions about her past. And Anna Camp says, oh, yeah, she's at that age where, she's going to ask questions about her parents. She wants to know about her parents. And I paused in my brain and went, what teenager wants to know about their parents, like, younger years? I feel like no one wants to know that. I certainly didn't want to ask my parents about what they were doing when they were my age at that time.
Yeah.
Who is that? Who's asking this?
Well, I do agree. I think most people probably wouldn't ask it. In this case,
that's why I removed Cindy from the example, because I get it. I get in the context of my mother survived multiple serial killers, and they have literally made movies and written books about what she went through. But that's the weird thing, though, is that she kind of knows all this stuff. And references it at points even, but there's like some other things she wants to ask, and I'm like, it does feel kind of weird that Cindy just wouldn't, like, I don't even know, like, just it feels weird to like shut off and not talk about anything, especially when you're being overprotective of what she is, because her daughter's at that age now. So it just, I don't know, it didn't ring true to me. And then I feel like, all these movies, I feel like they always have to force some type of conflict. Like, it's never just like, oh, they have a good relationship and they're getting along and stuff. Like, like it always has to be like some source of like conflict or fighting between them. And I was like, I don't know, can't these characters ever just kind of be like happy and having like an okay life? Well, you do need an arc, you do need conflict, but I think the problem is that this conflict feels forced. And there's one that they kind of pivot to as the movie goes on, and it feels actually so forced to pivot to it. If they just had that from the start, I could have maybe seen it working to some extent. But I'll talk about that in spoilers, what it is, because I can't really bring it up without getting into later details. So the ensemble cast, we should probably just sort of touch on them. There's some faces in here we recognize from other things. We have 2 actors from the Ghostbusters movies that just get made in here. Her friends are McKenna Grace, who played the daughter in those Ghostbusters movies, and then the other girl is Lucky from those movies.
I don't even think I remember that character.
I remember Lucky, the one that the Stranger Things boy was attracted to in Ghostbusters Afterlife? No, not even ringing a bell. Okay,
no, sorry.
She's here anyway. And then there's a guy who's a little bit, weird and into true crime and stuff. Yeah, that's Sam from Gen V, is what I know him from. So like,
I haven't watched that yet.
Yeah, so there's faces, from various things. That said, though, the one that I really want to talk about is the daughter's boyfriend, who, like, they cast someone who is designed to just like, and obviously I won't spoil whether or not where it goes, but from the first second you see his face, the movie's telling you, suspect him, suspect that he's the killer. And every time it cuts to his face, now I don't know if the actor just has this face, I don't know if he was directed to do this, but he just has the look of a serial killer every single time the camera cuts to his face. And I never, like, I don't know, it was distracting, honestly, just how kind of brooding he looked every time it cut to him.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. I hate to keep going back to the last 2 movies, but again, the strength of those movies was like how much I enjoyed those characters, and like all those characters they brought in and set up, like they're very memorable. They each had like personalities and were entertaining to watch. All the kids in this are a dud. Like every single one of them. Yeah. I'm just like, I could not care less. And
I don't even have to compare it to the last one. Just compare it to the original movie. The ensemble of characters in that movie. Both the ones who turned out to be the killers and didn't. Like, all of them are memorable. You remember Stu. You remember Billy, and obviously Randy, and obviously Tatum. It's a credit to how memorable those characters are that as soon as she said her daughter's name, I went, oh, she's named after Rose McGowan's character, because I remember that character's name. Now, Tim, do you remember, without looking, do you remember any of the character names from this movie that aren't Sidney or Tatum? Or the ones that you know from the previous movies, I guess. You know what I mean? Like the new teenagers.
Right. Yeah. I think, like, one of the friends was like Chloe, right? I feel like I remember Chloe.
That's Lucky. Yeah, that's Chloe. Yeah.
Okay. After that, was the boyfriend Ben?
Okay, that's surprising you got that, but yeah, that's Ben.
Okay. I think I'm spent. I can't name anything after that.
Okay, well, yeah, I couldn't have told you those. I couldn't have told you that the husband, played by Joel McHale, who I like well enough, but he plays Mark, the husband. Could you have told me Mark's name?
I could not have, no. I would have said Joe McHale, yeah.
Yeah, Joel McHale.
Which is why I think I must have heard he was in this, but I must have forgotten, because, yeah, when they cut to him, I kind of squinted a little bit. I was like, is that? Like, oh, okay.
I mean, he's looked at the same for about 15 years, but so I clocked him right away, but fair enough.
So I don't want to get into this too much because of spoilers and stuff. And I mean, most people knew this going in because of like headlines and trailers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I will just say, like, we did know that there was certain characters that were coming back, but we didn't know how or...
I think the way to say it is we knew certain actors
okay, good point. Yeah,
would be in the movie. We didn't necessarily know in what context. The main one being Matthew Lillard, who was heavily kind of talked about being in this.
Yeah, and so I think that was something else that people were interested or excited about. And again, not going to spoil anything, but I will just say what they do with them was just like the most boring, predictable thing you could have done with it.
Absolute dud. Like there was like potentially something interesting they could have done, and like by the end of the movie, the way they just use it for a bunch of cheap fan service pops is so egregious and sad that like I wasn't liking the movie, but the last like 20 minutes of it just completely like took it from mediocre to this is just bad. This is a bad movie.
Yeah, I think that's where I kind of was. Like, I don't think there was any point I was super on board with the movie, but for most of the runtime, I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. I get what they're doing, not for me, but hey ho. And then, yeah, just that last act really just whiffed it like super hard to the point where I'm like, all right, well, now I'm like getting a little cheesed off.
Yeah. So I've got some other little things that I want to bring up, but I can't really do it till spoilers. So if there's anything else you want to talk about in spoiler-free territory, Tim, now's the time.
Just out of curiosity, how did you feel about the opening sequence? Because I think I heard some people say, like, well, the opening was pretty cool, but I thought it was kind of crappy.
Well, I mean, it's again nostalgia bait right from the get-go, so I was groaning instantly. I think there's a couple of moments that are okay, where basically, what's his face, Williamson, who's directing this one. He's only directed one or two movies in his time. He basically does the Halloween.
One was like a pretty notorious flop.
Yeah, but he does the thing from Halloween where like you see this sort of ghost face mask coming out of the darkness like Michael Myers, and it's a kind of a weird moment because I'm like, okay, you're just doing the Halloween shot, but which in theory is fine because this is Scream's a whole thing where it's homaging these movies, but I don't know if I've ever before this movie felt like they try and like do moments or like, they'll talk about these horror movies, they'll have them playing in the background or whatever. I don't know if they specifically like steal moments and kind of like recreate them like quite in that way. So I felt like kind of mixed on that. Honestly though, my biggest problem with the opening is that once the movie gets going proper, you realize that it has nothing to do with the rest of the movie, and then by the very end, even the thematic link you thought it had to do with it is probably not even there either. So so it felt like a complete just short movie that has nothing to do with it, and which is weird because it's all over the trailers. Like so much of the trailer is the stuff from that first 10 minutes. I
didn't like it.
Yeah, the movie's like almost 2 hours long, and yet feels like everything's rushed. Whilst also being boring to watch. So it's that weird double-edged. It's the what do you call it? What's that last Star Wars movie called? Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, where it's like everything's rushed, but it feels slow because of that. I don't know. It's like a weird thing. But yeah, so yeah, not impressed. Honestly, like there's like one or two it's like there's ideas in it where I'm like I can see this idea kind of working, and I just don't know if Kevin Williamson's got the directing chops to pull it off and make me really into what's happening here, because I never really felt like I was into the suspense or anything like that. I just kind of feel like and this goes for a lot of the movie, honestly. It just kind of feels like we're going through the motions. It felt like and you know what, this is going to sound really insulting, but it almost feels like we put Scream through the AI program for write a sequel, and this is kind of what it turned out, and there's no kind of passion behind anything. That's how it feels to me. So, all right, well, we'll say spoilers then, so we can properly dig into everything and then talk about it and whatnot. So spoilers from this point on for Scream 7. First thing I want to talk about, right? We'll probably kind of go through in order, I guess, but I want to talk about this whole thing where you shoot the killer, and then Sidney says, after you shoot the killer, make sure you shoot them in the head, right? And I had no problem when she first said that, because I'm like, okay, yeah, like, you know, you don't know for sure, maybe they're wearing a vest, and you've had killers come back. That was a whole thing at the end of the first one. But the way it keeps coming up to the point where when the daughter doesn't shoot a killer right at the end of the movie, it's like, oh, she doesn't shoot her in the head, even though we see a big pool of blood, they turn away for like a second and turn back, and they've already like Michael Myers or Batmaned out of the scene. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you're treating them like superhumans now at this point. Yeah. They're not. In fact, one of the problems I have is, and I've had this complaint in other Scream movies as well, to be fair, but there's a scene in this movie where someone picks up I mean, it's a teenager technically, but I mean, it's like a 22-year-old man, right? Where they pick him up off his feet with their hands, like it's not a struggle, and like place him on something. And then later on, you find out the killers are a woman who's like, you know, in her late 40s, and a guy who looks quite scrawny and doesn't go to the gym. And I'm like, who's picking fully grown men up with ease like this? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, that's always like a thing in these movies, but you can look past it again if, like, you know, the scenes are done well enough, or if, like, you know, there's good suspense or whatever to it. But yeah, since the movie just sucks, like, you can't help but wonder, like, yeah, how are they pulling this off exactly?
Yeah. So I mean, I'll talk about the opening a little bit. I don't think I have that much to say, to be honest. It's, you know, it's a couple who are going to the Schumacher house, which is now an Airbnb, and it's got statues and posters all over it, and like the line, you know, the outlines of the bodies of where everyone died in the house, so we can have them just make tons of references to the first movie.
Yeah, so there's a lot about this I don't like. I guess in theory it's not a bad idea, but I found the two you know, actors in the scene just to be so annoying that I was just like, okay, can we please just get this over with? I'm like sick of these characters. And I mean, it does kind of seem weird. Like, I mean, obviously there's, you know, big horror fans and people like to visit, like, you know, the locations of movies and stuff, but it does seem like less believable when it is like a place where actual, like, you know, it's not just a movie, it's also like a very real life incident where people were killed and stuff, like. And I mean, and obviously there's people that are into true crime and everything, but
yeah, but like, I don't think is there an example of a horror movie that's based on like real events that horror fans like? Because the closest I can think of is like Ed Gein, but it's not like Texas Chainsaw or Psycho or like adaptations or like a telling of what he did. It's just like, no, they took some inspiration of some of the specific things that he would do.
Yeah, it's like far enough removed that, you know, that there's like there's a difference there. I feel like, and then even so, like maybe if you're really into true crime, maybe you might be like, oh, it'd be kind of neat to visit the Ed Gein house, but, you know, I doubt you'd be like, I want to stay there and, like, you know, like being all like weird about it, like talking about it like it's a comic book or something. So I don't know, that just didn't really ring true to me. But yeah, another thing, I don't know. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this kind of bothered me because I don't know if I agree with it, but maybe you do or whatever. So they're, you know, like one of the things in the house is that you get like a phone call from the person that owns it or whatever. As
soon as you, I didn't know where you were going with that, but as soon as you got to, there's a phone call, I'm like, I think I know where this is going.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously they're doing the ghost face thing and asking him scary movie questions, which is totally fine because again, it's a gimmick. Just
to be clear for people who have not seen the movie, this is not the killer. This is like, because they're going to this house, someone, like whoever owns this house, like calls them with the creepy voice to give them the call with the three horror movie questions.
Yeah, and so then the last question is, he goes like, what year did Jason drown or whatever? And
I think it was what age he was, but yeah, it works out.
Yeah. And like, he's doing all this math. We're like, oh well, the first movie took place in this year, and the person was blah 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 this year, or whatever. So he's this year's old, and like the person on the phone is like, no, that's incorrect. And he's like, what? No, I worked out. And then like his girlfriend or whatever is like, actually, Jason didn't drown. And he's like, correct. But I mean, that's not correct, right? Like,
I would say this question is it's such a bullshit technicality of like everyone always talks about that is when Jason drowned. Now technically, if you want to say that after the fact, well, obviously he didn't because he's around, and grows up, but it's still referred to as the time that everyone thought Jason drowned. It's like such a actually answer. I wasn't fond of it. I think they were trying to redo the thing, from an original Scream where it's like, hey, who's the killer in Friday the 13th? And that correctly, was like, no, it's not Jason, it's Mrs. Voorhees is the killer. That is a true statement. No one can dispute that. Yeah. This feels like such a weird technicality that, I don't know.
Yeah, like, I don't know, it just, again, I thought it was false. And then, like, but, I don't know, you can debate that, like, when talking about Friday the 13th or whatever, but, I've never heard anyone try to make that argument or whatever, and... Yeah, I don't know. I get like a movie that, is supposed to be so in tune with like, horror movies and pop culture and stuff. Like, it just felt like a really dumb thing to bring up. And I guess technically it's like, well, the person on the phone is not the actual killer, so maybe he doesn't know as much about this stuff or whatever. Fine. But
my problem with it isn't that the killer doesn't know his stuff. I just think this is a writing like annoyance.
It's stupid. But then anyway, we get like obviously the real Ghostface ends up being there and kills him. It's I
love how you're just glossing over all the actual because there's a whole set piece to set up where there's like an animatronic Ghostface because she gets scared at one point and it's like a motion sensor, so the head follows you and the arm comes up and it'll say like a sound bite and at some point the killer's going to swap it with himself and the killer's going to be pretending to be, and sure, that's what happens, right? Obviously that's what happens. That's how the boyfriend dies, and then her death is the whole big thing where they chase up the stairs and they end up dangling from the chandelier. The killer is down first and he just holds up the knife as she falls, and then then he sets the house on fire. And at this point I'm thinking, okay, I know that Stu, Matthew Lillard's character in some way is back, presumably. Let's say he's the killer. Let's say he somehow lived and he is one of the killers this time. This would be him setting fire to this house because he hates that everyone's using it as this tourist attraction or something. I was like, all right, I don't think these characters that died will have anything to do with the rest of the movie, but at least maybe this links up with who the killer is. And then obviously, when we get to the reveals later, it's not Stu, so I'm like, oh, so this was just, practice? This was a practice kill?
Yeah, like, I don't really understand the point of it. I guess maybe you can say if they're trying to make Sydney believe that Stu is back, this could be something that they can point to as a reason why he's returned. But do they ever even talk about it? Like, does Sydney ever even mention that it happened? Like, I don't remember.
Think Cindy mentioned it. I think at one point maybe her husband hears a bit because the husband's a cop. We've not mentioned that. He's like the local sheriff, but he I think hears it on the radio for something happened in Woodsboro or something. Like I think it's mentioned very briefly, but it's not something that anyone ever brings up when they're talking about who the killer is. Like, oh, why did he do that? It never comes up, which almost makes me think that it was shot later and they didn't even know it was happening when they made the rest of the movie, and then they sort of made this little short thing as they open it. Maybe they had a different opening or whatever. I don't know, but given that the posters and everything have got the fire and all that, and it's all based on this scene, it's kind of weird just how much they're emphasizing it and all the marketing.
Well, yeah, I feel like that was a big marketing thing where they're and I think it was on posters and stuff too, where it's we're gonna burn it all down, and it's all about burning everything down, and then it's well, that has nothing to do with the movie.
Also, one of the taglines was "It's all led to this," and I'm like, really? So from Scream 1 in 1996, it's all been building to this one, and nothing about this movie feels like the big epic finale, or even a monumental moment in their lives, or some big thing. Because this is the thing, the whole Stu thing, right? This is the thing about the whole Stu thing, is that credit to them, there is an interesting idea, and Sydney gets a call, right? And it's it's the same, hey, it's Sydney, blah, 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 right? And then she's like, oh, you're hiding, asshole, why'd you always have to hide behind a voice changer? He's like, fine, I won't hide this time, video call. It's Matthew Lillard. He's just, doing the Matthew Lillard shoes, like, hello, Sydney, and all the rest of it. Here's the thing with this. If this actually ended up being, as stupid as it would be, right, to retcon that he somehow survived the original movie, as stupid as that would be, it would at least feel like some kind of big deal and a natural tie-in to, like, everything since the start, because one of the original killers is in some way back. But they immediately, as soon as this comes up, they all start talking about AI. They all start talking about face, deep fakes and all that. And they're like, is this possible? Can it be done? Obviously, he's dead. We don't believe that. And they talk about it so much. They talk about, like, that it must be AI, it must be deep fake, that I'm like, it's almost setting up, it's like trying to make you think that that's a red herring, so that, like, if anything, it's more likely at a certain point he is just alive, because all of this just feels like a bunch of bullshit that you're talking about too much to try and throw us off the scent. But here's the thing. When we actually get to the end of the movie and we get the reveal of who the killers are, having Stu somehow have survived would have been a better choice based on what they actually give us at the end. Or alternatively, there was a point in the middle of this movie where I thought it wasn't really Stu, it was just someone who looked like him, but he was in a mental hospital and had amnesia and had convinced himself he was Stu, and I thought they were going that route, and that would have been better than what it wouldn't have been great, but it would have been better than what they actually did. And at the very least, more creative and more wacky, because, like, the one of the big things about who it is it's just so...
Could have been more fun.
Yeah. Anyway.
And I mean, I don't know if they wanted people to believe that there's a possibility he could be back, but I don't think there's ever a second, even when he first appeared on screen, that I thought that it was actually him.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't either at first, and then, but at a certain point, I was like, well... once they're sort of like trying to throw red herrings in the middle of the movie, I was like, well, is it more likely or less likely now? Or at the very least, what's more interesting? Is it just that he's alive? Like, if anything, I would have taken the campiness of him being alive, or someone thinks he's Stu at the very least, played by Matthew Lillard, but no. What we got is much worse. The other marketing thing that I wanted to bring up is, and it's probably the best thing about the movie, honestly, is the Texas Chainsaw poster they did.
Sure.
Right? It's a really cool poster. And in the main street of the town, there's a theater playing Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and people run past it at one point, and I was thinking, oh, they're going to run in there and we're going to have, like, the Texas Chainsaw playing on the screen as, like, the killer's stalking them, which admittedly wouldn't have made much sense, because by that point in the movie there's a curfew, so no one's supposed to be out of their houses. But I thought, oh, maybe they'll do something with it, but they never actually do. It's literally just on the the marquee in the background. But hey, that's what it is. So, after the opening scene, I'm thinking, okay, that was nothing but nostalgia and cheap pops. I do not care. The very first thing that goes to after the title is it does a remake of the first Sydney scene of the original movie, where Sydney was in her room. Here she's on her phone rather than a computer, and the boyfriend comes to the window, and the boyfriend very intentionally says all the Billy lines. He's like, oh, I was at home watching TV and I got bored, but Stab was on, so he swaps Exorcist with Stab, and it got me thinking of you. And I'm like, if I was Sydney's child and people started, like, referencing me as if I was her, I would feel a bit weirded out by that. But no, she seems quite into it, and they end up kissing. So, all right.
Yeah, it's strange. It's just a stupid reference for reference sake. And then it also seemed weird to me, because, again, it's like, okay, how does he know the exact dialogue? Like, I'm guessing that they must have put the same dialogue from the movie, but again, just like, how would they have gotten it? Like, Sydney would have had to have told.
Yeah, you're thinking about it too much, Tim. This has always been a problem with the Stab stuff, is like they have access to information that wouldn't have been in Gail's book. How would Gail know what the exact lines were in this conversation? She wouldn't. But for the sake of just, they made a movie out of it, so it matches. It matches as much as possible, just for the sake of, we don't have to make up fake different dialogue for it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. It's a nitpick, which... if the movie was better, it'd be like some small thing that wouldn't even bother me, but I don't know, it just stood out to me as being stupid.
This is the equivalent of when a movie says we're going to look at security camera footage of an event, but then it's just the footage from the movie that they use. That's what this is. It's that kind of thing. So, but yeah, of course, the whole thing is Sydney's now the parent. She comes at the door and then knows the boy's hiding and tells him to get lost, pretty much. And it's like, okay, sure. You know, she seems to have a good relationship with her husband. I was actually thinking at this point, I'm like, did they forget she had 2 toddlers in the last movie? Like, is this something they've forgotten about? But now they have one little Skype call with grandparents that they're visiting. Like, oh, they're in a different state, they're away, because we don't want to have to deal with the fact that there's 2 children. So we're just writing them out of the movie. They're over there. Can't wait till next time when we get Ghostface coming after like 10-year-olds or whatever age they'll be by the time that comes out.
And do like I mean, what could potentially be funny if you make it more of like I don't know, like Home Alone or something, where it's like Ghostface is trying to get in and the kids just like beating the crap out of him.
Yeah. Oh, that makes me think of something later in this movie that upset me, but we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, I mean, I would have to go to the beat for beat. I was just, you know, like her and Joel McHale are sort of like just having casual conversation. Is her daughter having sex yet? And like, well, I don't think so, but it's probably only going to be like 5 minutes, so we better brace ourselves. And you know, whatever. And it's like, okay, fine. And for me, like, where the nostalgia bait is going too far is when I don't notice it and then the movie explains to me that there's nostalgia bait that I didn't notice. And what I'm talking about is the daughter comes down wearing a jacket. I didn't even think twice about it. And like Sydney stops in her tracks and stares and is like, where did you get that? And she's like, oh, I found it in the attic. And then it wasn't until they kind of just flat out said, oh, that was my jacket from college. I'm like, wait, are people nostalgic for the jacket she wore in Scream 2? Is that what we're doing here?
I mean, it's not something I would have recognized, but I do think Scream is a franchise that does have like some pretty hardcore fans that I think there are people out there that would have instantly clocked it. But I mean, at the same time, though, it's not like Indiana Jones hat or something that is, you know, like this big iconic thing. Like, yeah, it's just a jacket.
It's so weird to me, though, because it's not even like something from the original movie. It's something from the sequel. But I mean, this movie loves the sequel because they've even got Tatum doing like a theater thing in school. And like at one point, you know, when Sydney's kind of opening up to her or trying to, she's like, "Oh yeah, I was always scared when I got stage fright." And she's like, "Wait, you did theater?" And she's like, "Yeah, I did in college for a while." And I'm like, "Oh, like Williamson must like Scream 2 because he's referencing it a lot, like in this movie between the jacket and the theater stuff." You know,
I mean, I don't think we're the biggest fans of it, but I do think there are some people that really pop hard for it. Like, I think the second one in particular, I think has like a lot of fans. I mean, I don't mind. Like, I have critiques, I have complaints. I don't think it's a great movie, but like, you know, compared to like 3, like, come on, like, true, you know, high art in that case. But and then also, like, the way she freaks out about the jacket, like, it makes it seem like the jacket saved her life in the last movie or something. Like, it's obviously it's a remnant from that movie, which would have been, you know, a big time in her life or whatever. But yeah, but it felt forced because it wasn't like, it's not like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example where it would make sense to me, but like, if it was something that was actually directly tied to the events, this was just a jacket she happened to be wearing. It's not like, I don't know, like there's like a blood stain on it from like her best friend or something. Right, yeah, or exactly. I don't know. Or like if it was like her boyfriend at the time, like if it was his jacket and then at the end of the movie he gave it to her or something like that, you know? Yeah. See, if it was like something that belonged to someone she lost, that I could get the weird in the stare because you're wearing all my dead friends thing, but this was literally just her jacket that she happened to be wearing for a time in the late 90s. Like, it just feels so try hard to me, you know, like, oh, the iconic jacket from Scream 2. All right, sure. All right, so yeah, we've been going like kind of beat by beat for like the start of the movie, but I probably couldn't even really tell you what happens after this. Like, to me, it's probably like a hard cut from like this to, I guess, like the theater kill, basically. The only notable thing, I think, before then is all the stuff with Sydney going to her work. She works at a coffee shop, and we see her interacting with some of the other characters. We meet the nerdy kid, because he's one of the tech guys at the theater group as well, and he's like, hey, you know, I've got this crime podcast, and I think, you know, I don't know if he's asking her to be on it necessarily, but and Anna camps, you know, his mum, and comes up and apologizes for him asking about it and all that, and she seems to be, Sydney's like, it's fine, it's whatever, people ask, blah, blah, blah.
And then she has a heart-to-heart about her daughter. That's going on. And then, yeah, the first big kill. Although I think it does coincide, though, with Cindy getting the call and then the FaceTime with Stu. Because he says, hey, look, I'm right outside the school. And Cindy's like, I need to get there immediately. She grabs her gun. Joel McHale starts, driving there. Weirdly, though, it's not, the killer doesn't go after Tatum. The killer goes after McKenna Gracie's character, who's on a harness. She's doing a sort of flying princess or fairy part in the play.
It looks like maybe they're doing Peter Pan, but I couldn't tell you what exactly they're going for.
Is there a dog in Peter Pan?
I think so.
Is there? Okay, because that's what Tatum's playing. She's got a dog outfit on.
I believe there is a dog in the beginning with the kids, but I don't know if it has a big part that you would need someone to play it.
Yeah, the killer basically, off camera kills the operator, and then the whole bit here is that she's trying to get away while she's dangling there, and she's sort of going backwards and forwards, and he just starts holding up the knife basically, and then eventually she goes right through the knife, and it just some of her intestines just kind of fall out.
Yeah, I think the idea of this is pretty cool. I don't know if Williamson executed it the best. It probably could have looked a little better, or maybe had some better gore, but I think this was a pretty decent, kill.
On paper, I think it's a little over-edited, which is kind of my complaint of all the kills, to be honest. I feel like there's a lot of cutting around, which just kind of neuters some of the feeling of them. But yeah, she's left dangling there, and everyone. And after this, Sydney's immediately in, okay, we can't trust anyone. The killer's usually someone your boyfriend's not allowed over, blah, 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 blah. Let's all go home. And this is where we get to the part of the movie which really, really annoyed me, right? So they go home, and they come in, and Sheriff Joe McHale is hey, my 2 deputies here are going to sweep the house. And the 2 deputies go around checking windows and locks and stuff, and checking under beds. And, little montage, and then they're leaving and saying, okay, house is clear, right? You're all good, chief? And it's all right, sure. And they're not going to stay here. They're going to pack their bags. I mean, Cindy's actually annoyed that her daughter had unpacked her go bag, which apparently was supposed to be ready in the event of a Ghostface incident. But as the deputies are leaving, my first thought was, well, did they check the attic? Because I feel like that's the most obvious place someone would hide. And I shit you not, the second after I had that thought, that it cut to a shot of the hallway upstairs, and the camera tilts up to the attic door, and you see it start to open, and I'm like, you swept the house looking for people hiding, and you didn't even look in the attic? Why would that not be a place you look? In what world is that? I would be checking there first before you start checking under the beds.
Yeah, and that's pretty stupid. 2 things I want to mention. One, there's a weird thing where I don't know if it's half the house is under construction or something.
It's it's an extra, they're adding stuff, so it's not actually inside the house. I think to get to it, they have to go outside to access it. But it's it makes me think of Lethal Weapon 2, because Lethal Weapon 2 had that going on, where they're building an extension to the side of the house. Yeah.
Which is totally fine, but the only reason why I say it's kind of weird is because I feel like it never comes into play. The final act takes place there, but it doesn't feel like they're really utilizing it, or there's a reason for it. It's just that it's there. They
do when the husband gets, he ends up living, but when you think the husband's killed, there's a little bit of a he's walking through all the plastic sheets that are dangling, so they try and use it as a suspense thing at one point. There's no tools or power tools used to kill anyone, is I think what you're getting at.
It just feels like for such a big thing that's going on with it, and obviously I can tell you from doing construction and stuff on our house, it is a chore and something that's constantly being worked on, and there's constantly people at the house, so it felt kind of weirdly empty, and I don't think they ever really talk about it that much. So again, just another thing that seemed kind of out of place to me, that it's oh, this is a very specific thing you're doing with the house, and then you're not really utilizing it that much, again, I know there's some scenes that take place in it, but it doesn't feel like there's much of a reason or whatever for it. So.
It feels undercooked. It feels like there could have been more done with it, for sure. I'm not disagreeing with that, certainly.
And then and the other thing that I thought was kind of weird is, so you have the dad is like a cop and everything, and it's kind of strange because there are times where it feels like he has the whole power of the police force, backing him up, and so you think like anytime there's gonna be like a crime scene, like the police are gonna be there, and then like because like when they're going to the high school and stuff, like like all these police cars like showing up and blah blah, and then like you said, like they're going back to the house and sweeping the house and stuff, but then I don't know, it just feels like conveniently the police are there and with them like when they need to be, and then it's like when you need to have them alone, like they're nowhere or whatever. And I don't know, just like another thing that, again, that just kind of feel weird. Like there are times where a lot of the like locations feel like weirdly empty, and I know they establish there's a curfew later on, but like still,
it's this classic horror movie thing where for some reason people like later on there's a lot of stuff that takes place in kind of like a pub style kind of location, and like there's people who like disappear and don't even know that there's killings happening, like, and it's like this place isn't that big, like, there's no way you're not hearing some of this, but somehow there's places to go and hide or like not be oblivious to what's happening for like extended periods of time. Like
you were saying towards like the end of the movie too, like characters just peace out for like the rest of the movie, you know, and like and it's weird because it's not like it's not like half the characters drive away or go somewhere really far and stuff. They're kind of just like all in this area, and then like they'll run down the street and it's like you never hear from them again. Like it's I don't know, again, it's just weird to me.
But this was kind of sloppy and whatnot. So Ghostface attacks. He has a knife to the daughter's neck. They realize there's someone here, and there's an extended fight where Jill McHale fights Ghostface, but ultimately gets shoved downstairs. So the ladies, right, Cindy and her daughter, run to a panic room that her daughter didn't know about, because the daughter's like, where are we going? But she's like, no, I've got this behind the bookcase. And they go into the panic room, and it's like, okay, the killer can't get in here, and it makes sense that Cindy would have this. Like, she's the most like the most predictable thing that she would do is have a panic room compared to anyone else that exists. I get it. But then immediately she's like, oh, there's another way out of here though, and I can't leave your dad out there on his own, so I'm going to leave. And the daughter's like, no, I don't want to be here on my own. And she's like, all right, fine, you can come with me. And I'm like, why did you write in a panic room if all you were going to do is have them immediately leave? Like, I thought, because honestly, the thought of like a slasher movie where the main like victim the killer wants is in a panic room and he starts killing anyone who comes to the house and is trying to like find a way in or find a way to lure them out, actually sounds like a fun premise, like a fun, admittedly maybe you'd overlap them too much with the movie Panic Room, but there may be enough different with it to make it kind of work. And then instead they just completely throw it away because there's like a crack or like an opening where they can go like behind the wall and they're like sort of sliding through the, and I'm like, who's designed a house like this? Unless you intentionally made this kind of escape route to get out from the panic rooms, but where the perpetrators in the house wouldn't know you're there. I don't know, but you get Ghostface stabbing at the walls and they're, backwards and forwards, blah blah blah.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you're not really supposed to like comment and be like, oh, like, why aren't the characters doing this or that? Because it's like, that's kind of like the thing with the Scream movies where it's like, oh yeah, they talk about horror movies, but then at the end of the day, they are still in one, so they're falling to the tropes and stuff. But again, when you're in the panic room, like, at least make a quick call to the cops or whatever, especially because it doesn't seem like they would be that far away. Like, because they were like just there. Yeah, the deputies who sweep the house left like 2 minutes ago. They will be down the street. Like, go call them in. And like, panic rooms by design always have a phone in there, right? That's the point. That's part. Yeah. So it feels silly to me that they don't do anything else except let's put ourselves immediately in danger so the movie can keep going forward. Just like, we're going to sweep the house, but we're not going to check the attic because we need the most obvious place the killer could be hiding to be unnoticed for the sake of the movie just continuing as we want it to. Yeah, and it's weird, like, I don't know if like Williamson maybe just isn't a very compelling director, because I feel like this should be like a really cool tense scene where they're trying to get through the walls and he starts stabbing and stuff, but I didn't really feel it. I mean, maybe part of it is because I saw it a bunch of times in the trailers, like, for the last couple of months, so maybe part of it was kind of knowing it was coming, but I don't know, I just like, it wasn't really like exciting me. No, I mean, I leave it that the writing here's good though. I mean, the messiness is both the writing and the directing, to be honest. The writing more so, and part of that is probably because we have to quickly write a movie about Sydney and get it out in 2 years or whatever because of everything that's happening.
and maybe had rewrites and so on, try to patch things up. I don't know. It just all feels very undercooked in so many ways. And we're not even gotten to the killers yet and who they are. Because there's kind of a swerve here where when they do get out of the house and the dad wakes up, Joel McHale tackles the killer, where the killer gets pushed onto the road and like out of nowhere gets hit with a vehicle, and then out comes Gail Weathers and what were the names of Mindy and Chad, the two of the core four, but the core four no more because the other two aren't here. But they're like working for Gail now. They're kind of her protege.
For some reason.
Yeah, just because they bonded in New York, I guess. Yeah. So here we are. And she's here. And this is something else. It's like, okay, so Gail rushed here to the town Sidney lives in because Ghostface stuff is happening. Like, she never did that in like other recent movies, right? I don't know.
Well, I mean, in the last one, she was already in New York, so there was a reason why she was there. And then, I forget in the last one if there's like a more specific reason, why she was coming. But I don't know. I do like there's a couple of things that I like here. Like, I do like the idea of, the killer getting killed halfway through the movie. And I mean, at this point, kind of assume that there's always more than one killer, but... Yeah,
which is fine. And I like that too. And obviously we all go, well, obviously there's going to be at least one more, right? Because we're not just done here. But like, they pull the mask off, and it is almost kind of funny when they're like, who's this? Right? Because we're supposed to know who the killer is. We have no idea who this guy is. But it's like, okay, that's fine. And I get that, like Sidney and some of the others are like, okay, this is just like a red herring. This is just like a patsy. The real killer's still out there. But bizarrely, like the police put a curfew on the next day, and I'm like, I don't know why the official like reaction is, oh, there's definitely still a killer out there. Like, I get why, like the main characters think there is, but I don't get why it's like, oh, we have to treat it like there's a killer on the loose still from the perspective of the authorities. I don't see why we're doing all that, and that's all I could think about when we were getting the montage of people closing their shops and putting the signs up and whatever else. I thought that was very strange to me.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
He's an escaped, or not even escaped, he's a released mental patient, I guess, which feels very lazy as well. I mean, especially since it's not just him, like multiple of the killers are just mental patients, basically. Yeah. It's like, okay, is that what we're doing here? All right. But Gail's like, hey, we have to solve this, Cindy. Come work with me. And Cindy's like, no, I refuse to answer the call. Oh, we get another call from Stu. Oh, that was weird. You know what, Gail, you're right. This won't stop unless I solve it with you, so let's go and investigate together. All right, there you go, movie set up, right? All of that conversation I thought was horribly written. It just felt like a 180 because the movie needs it to happen. Yeah. Not to mention that I should have been in New York to help you, Gail.
That's like, I mean, it's so weird. Like, people don't talk like this in real life. Like, like they're talking about it like it was a movie. Like, hey, we missed you. Like, they might as well be saying, hey, we missed you in Scream 6. Like, it's just not.
That is what it is. It's like, it's so on the nose. It's basically like, yeah, we kind of missed you being in the last one. In fact, Tim, not to put too fine a point on it, but it's the effing killer's motive that she wasn't in Scream 6. More than that later.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if it, like, I don't know if they're doing this intentionally or whatever, but it really feels like Williamson has like an axe to grind. Like, he hated the last movie and was like, how dare they not have like, my character in it. But I mean, we all know that they were gonna have her in it, but they refused to pony up the money for her. So it's not even like, they didn't want her to have her in it.
Yeah. And then all the controversy happened, and then they gave her a dump truck of money because we need a star for the next one.
Yeah. It's all very stupid. It all just feels like very like poorly written fanfic or something. It's like, and then Gail comes and she's like, hey, let's get back in the game. It's like, you got it, dude.
We're putting the Scream team back together. That's what which is also like why like so Gail and the siblings here, Chad and Mindy, they're the ones that just disappear for the last act. Like they each have their own little thing. Gail does get like a sort of bit of investigation, and then like the interview with Sydney, and then she's just not around for after that. Chad and Mindy do the thing where like, oh, we're going to talk to the teenagers and figure out who the killer is, and they make a little meta joke of how Mindy's kind of gotten it wrong in the last two movies when she thinks she knows what she's talking about. So she's got redemption. She wants to redeem herself and find out who the killer is. But, you know, after a couple of scenes of talking to the teenagers, and then they get not killed, just kind of slashed or lightly stabbed, they just disappear. And it's like, they're mildly injured, I guess. So they're just not here for the rest of the movie. But then, of course, everyone shows up in the last minute just to like say goodbye and wrap up the movie. So,
it's weird because I really enjoyed these characters in the last two movies, and here they're just, I mean, I guess you can say this about most of the movie, but they just feel like they're really not written well. And
well, this goes back to what I was saying about how everyone suffers because the movie's like, no, this is about Gail and her daughter, and yeah. It's okay, it's fine to say that they are the focus, like, don't get me wrong, but everything else is completely sacrificed to make that feel like it's the most important thing. Like, everyone else is underwritten and undercooked. And it's not that their writing's that good either, but like they at least give them time, and they at least try to give them like, you know, conflict and like things that, even though I think they all rings false, but all these other characters, they're there for basically extended cameos and then have nothing to contribute, right?
No, totally. And then the only thing is like with these two, because again, it feels like there's so many jabs at the last movie that like it almost makes me feel like, okay, well, they like kind of like written poorly on purpose because it's like, well, these aren't my characters, you know. I mean, you're probably like reading way too much into it or something, but that's like what it kind of felt like, especially just, you know, giving them absolutely nothing to do.
I would probably, I'd say that probably not, and that's like that sort of vindictive way, because Gail's also got very little to do, and all of the new characters that Williamson invented here have very little to do. So, you know, they're equal on that front.
That's true.
So that's something. All right, let's talk about the trip to the mental hospital where the killer that's now dead came from. And they go there, they ask an orderly to like see the room of the killer, and he's like showing them off, and he's giving them some backstory. And then they bring up a photo of Stu because they're like, oh, is it possible somehow? Because one of the little things they've figured out by this point is that the records of like the what do you call it, the autopsy
Stu's
or whatever,
body.
Like that so mysteriously went missing, and it's like, oh, maybe it just never happened. Maybe the body did go missing. Maybe he was alive. Blah blah. And they're at the hospital, and they show up and say, hey, do you recognize this guy? And the orderly looks at him and goes, oh yeah, that's John Doe. And they're like, John Doe? I was like, yeah, he had amnesia, didn't know who he was, but he was in that room over there for like 15 years or 20 years or whatever. And it's like, okay, are they actually setting up that this is Stu? Or alternatively, I was thinking, oh, maybe it's just someone who's convinced himself he's Stu because he looks like him, and no one would know what Stu was going to look like when he was older, so this is like close enough that it kind of works or whatever. So at this point, I'm like, well, at least this is more interesting than, you know, whatever else. And then obviously the fact that this guy's the one guy who kind of says, no, that's like, he's been here, I've seen him. This guy turns out to be one of the killers. I cannot tell you how deflated I was when this mask came off and it was this dude who was in this one scene who ended up being one of the killers.
And I'm not trying to like pat myself on the back because I guessed it or whatever, but like as soon as he said like, oh yeah, I recognize him, that's John Doe, it didn't make me think like, oh, maybe Stu is alive. It made me think like, oh, well, he's probably the killer then. Like, he's probably lying. And it I mean, that's not like a good thing though. Like,
no, it's a bad. Like,
you know,
I guess I was just foolishly hoping that they're actually planting an interesting seed for something whatever it may be later. But no, it was the most dull possible explanation ever.
And so, and you know, I guess I don't want to jump too ahead, but since we're kind of talking about it, so you have the killer reveals, and he reveals to be one, and then, you know, the other killer goes into a...
All right, before you get to the other killer, can I just say that this guy, once he's revealed to be the killer, explains that he used to work for the AI department of Google.
Right.
But he also works here as an orderly. When did he make that career change? Because I assume he's lying about being here for like 16 years, because that's what he says. Because AI wasn't a thing 16 years ago in the way that we're talking about it now. But I'm like, so yeah, you quit your job in the tech industry and became an orderly? That doesn't compute. That's stupid.
Well, here's the thing. I feel like they have the reveal, but then they forgot to explain why he has any motivation tied up into this, because, you know, the other killer she explains, it's poorly explained, but she has an explanation for why she's doing what she's doing, and she mentions that, oh yeah, she met this guy and he's good with AI, but then they never actually say like why they decided to work together or team up or anything. Like,
I have to assume, one, he's crazy, right? And two, he's got the hots for her, and she was, like, oh yeah, let's have sex. You're going to kill people with me though, right? Like, we're going to do that together. Yeah, sure, let's have sex. Like, I can only assume that that's how the conversation went.
I mean, I assumed it was something like that as well, but again, to me, it's just so like, oh, like you just didn't care about like this ending at all, that you're not even like bothering to have some type of reasoning or whatever.
The fact that this is the accomplice killer, this is the one that was sort of talked into it by the other one. Like, this is maybe even worse than, because I know people like Scream 2, but the explanation at Scream 2 at the end, where it's like, oh, the second killer, the guy killer, McHale, is that his name? I don't remember.
Sounds familiar.
But the Billy's mother is just like, oh yeah, I found him on the internet. He's just an aspiring serial killer with a good attitude. And I'm like, oh, like, that's very thin. That's just, you just found someone who was willing to kill, and that's it. This might actually be worse, because at least I understand. As poor as it is, I understand what she was saying there. Here, it's actually kind of unclear exactly what his motive is. And then the other killer, the neighbor, Anna Camp's motive is just like, you were a role model. I killed my husband because you showed me that a woman can be strong, and then you weren't involved the last time there was a Ghostface killer. That upsets me that you were in Scream 6, so I decided to teach you a lesson and make this like an origin story of a passing of the torch, your daughter, which made me think, wait, so you're not going to kill her daughter? You want Tatum to live because you want her to be the new Sydney? Okay. And then it trails off because they start fighting, and yeah, who cares?
Yeah, there's a weird thing where like she keeps saying like, and then you left, but it's like, yeah, I understand they're saying like, oh, you weren't in Scream 6, but like, again, in terms of the real world, it's like, what are you trying to say? Like, she, like, do you mean like she literally like wasn't there as your neighbor for a long time or something? Like, it's not even like she left. It's like she didn't go. Like, she didn't go to New York. Like,
it's nothing to do with her being a neighbor. It's just you weren't involved when Scream stuff started happening, and that's an offense. Like, it's such it's like the worst meta thing possible, that it's like, oh, the motive is you weren't in the last movie, and this is representing fans who were upset by that. It's lame. It's incredibly lame. It's like I think a lot of the killer reveals in this franchise are pretty shit, to be honest, but I think this is, taking the cake.
No, absolutely. It just feels so like deflated, and just like again, there's lots of reveals throughout the series that are stupid, but at least they are like, there's a story behind it. This doesn't feel like there's a story. It's just, and also it's a character that like we barely seen anything of. Like, she's had like a couple of scenes, and
both of them are like that, to be honest, because like usually one of the killers, if there's more than one, has at least been in enough scenes to feel like they're a main character, right?
Yeah, exactly.
In Scream 2, Mickey was a part of the group at the very least, so even though Mrs. Loomis was, only in a couple of short scenes, and she was kind of like, oh, she seems pulled out of her ass to be the killer, it's like, okay, at least one of them was. And I think that's been true, in Scream 4 with Emma Roberts, she was like a primary character the entire time, right? So that made sense.
And then the one thing that I would say that was interesting about her character, they just completely gloss over, which is the fact that she killed her son. Like,
husband.
Her son.
Oh, yeah, well, she was
like as Ghostface.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know if she's the Ghostface that did that though. It kind of depends, right?
Well, I mean, either way, it doesn't matter, because the son still died. Like, it's not like she said, "Oh, by the way, don't kill my son."
She's complicit in the act of killing, because she basically says, "Oh, he was going to just be like his father." So
yeah, and like she doesn't like, obviously she doesn't care or feel remorse, but I mean, that is something that's like interesting. That it's like, oh, like you're a killer and you're also like willing to go like this extreme with it and everything. But again, it's just like, so like we're just rushing right past it.
Yeah, it's also kind of weird that like the last movie was really kind of trying to get into this idea of like the mental well-being of the main characters because of what they went through, and I don't think it was necessarily great or super well done, but it felt like it was trying to like tackle the idea of like, you know, normal people going through like, you know, trauma or mental illness or whatever. And then this one, it's just like, oh no, all the loonies from the loony bin are the killers, and that's like, you know,
yeah, it doesn't seem the most like sensitive reading.
And Anna Camp might not have been in the hospital, although maybe she was, and that's how she met the other guy. But at the very least, she, you know, should be, because she killed her husband. You know, it's like she may have not got caught, but she was deserving of such treatment, potentially.
Well, I mean, it's a weird way to go about it, because like one of the first thing she says when she's revealing herself is she, you know, says like, you know, like, oh, like I'm an abuse survivor, which I don't know, just makes it weird that like then the next thing you start talking about is like how you went like crazy and stuff, and it's like again, it's, I don't know, it's like what kind of message are you necessarily trying to say here? I don't know.
Yeah, anyway, to go back to where we were, because we skipped to the killer reveals. They basically have a plan. It's like, oh, we have to lure out Stu, make him call again. Oh, you know what we're going to do, Gail? I'm going to give you what you've been asking for since 1996. And she's like, an interview. Also, there's like a local news guy that tries to talk to Gail when she first arrives, and when he does that, she just says F the F off, which was basically Gail's character in this movie. She's got a potty mouth and keeps dropping F-bombs on people, which was funny the first time a little bit, but by the time she was doing it the fifth or sixth time, I was like, okay, I get it. She swears a lot, right? We're past that.
And then they make this sound like such an epic thing, and I guess if you're a big fan of the franchise, like this is something, you know, that like goes back to the first movie where it's like Gail wants that interview, like she's never gonna get it, like blah blah. So it does feel like this should be a big moment, and then the interview is just so nothing. Like I mean, obviously we're not gonna sit down for like a full 60-minute interview, but like, you know, at the same time though, it feels like nothing.
It's nothing. It's nothing until Gail starts asking about her kids, and then Cindy gets upset and takes off the mic and says, "Don't talk about my kids." And like I get that part of it, but like, yeah, I really thought there was going to be something more meaningful here, where Gail was going to ask some questions that would actually, I don't know, like open Cindy up in a way where Cindy starts like maybe getting honest with herself about why she feels a certain way about things. Like I thought they might try and make it like a big deal of like,
right,
you know, this is something she should have done a long time ago. Like I know in the first movie it's framed as Gail's just, you know, try to like build her career and all that, but I was wondering if this idea of like, oh, Cindy thinks they're just going to like go through the motions to like draw out the killer, but Gail's like, no, F that, I'm going to actually do what I'm supposed to do when I interview someone. But it just kind of, yeah, it didn't really amount to a whole lot. And the payoff to this is at the very end when because Gail disappears after this scene, she's not around until the final moments, where she shows up and Cindy's like, you know what, I said I don't trust anyone, but I trust you, Gail. And they hug, and I'm like, okay, I guess we're best friends now. I guess. You know, there's a moment where she's like, oh, how would you feel if I brought up Dewey? And Gail's like, oh, I'd tell myself that I'm okay because that's what I have to tell myself every day. And then she pops some pills and starts drinking. And it's like, okay, clearly she's messed up too. I guess we can bond over that a little bit. Yeah, I wasn't really feeling it all that much.
But yeah, it's also weird though, because like, yeah, you know, they get the other call and everything, and then like, you know, Sydney runs like right out of the studio, and then it seems like Gail tries to follow her just like a few seconds later, but like she's already gone, and it's like impossible to find her, and then that's just like, all right, no more you for the rest of the movie. Yeah,
we've got nothing for you to do now, so you just wait until it's time for everyone to say goodbye. Meanwhile, the other thing that they sort of pivot right with Tatum's character, where Tatum at this point in the movie, when she starts talking to Chad and Mindy, she's like, you know, my mother's this survivor. I'm the daughter of Sidney Prescott / Sidney Evans. I should be a survivor, but I'm not. I'm Tatum. I'm named after the one who got killed. I'm a loser. You know, I will panic, I will freeze, and I will die. I am not the fighter that my mother was. Like, all of a sudden, we pivot into that being what the story of the movie is, between her and Sidney, and it's kind of like, you could argue that was always what it was to an extent, and the reason why she wanted to know more stuff about her mother's past was that she was trying to like live up to this idea that, you know, because you could have maybe said something about how, oh, her mother's famous and she's kind of famous for surviving something, and while some people are shitty about it, a lot of people probably do think she's a badass because of it, and maybe that would put some pressure on young Tatum here and how she is perceived and whatnot. But it does feel like a bit of a pivot based on how they focused it before. So it feels kind of, but by the time we get to the point where she's like on her own crying on the phone and like, I'm not like you, Mom, I'm not a strong survivor, I'm a loser, I'm a Tatum. It's like, okay, like there's something here about her having to like talk her daughter through like surviving a serial killer and like being able to see it and like hear what she's going through. There's an idea there for sure, but I mean, we get to that because the kids are all together in the bar, the pub area, and eventually Tatum leaves because she wants to go and find her mother because they see the interview on TV and she hears some stuff she's not heard before. She wants to go see her, and the boyfriend's like, yeah, I'll take you. And just to be dicks, the big red herring here is they get in the boyfriend's car and he has a laptop open with like editing software where he's like basically done AI of Schumacher like with himself, and obviously Tatum sees it and is like, what the hell is this? And he's like, oh, I was just doing it to see if I could do it to sort of prove if the other thing was real. And she doesn't believe him and hits him with the laptop and like runs out. And notably, a killer is there and like we see Ghostface and he starts chasing her, and then immediately inside the pub a Ghostface starts like causing chaos in there and coming after them one by one. So I'm like, okay, there's still two killers then. Like, if you try and tell me later there's only one killer after that first one died, like, I will not believe you because they're literally doing two things at the same time right now. So, but yeah, so she runs through the streets a little bit from a killer, although we mainly stick with the bar for a while, and basically everyone who's not Chad and Mindy gets killed in one way or another. He gets lifted up. When I say he, I mean Lucas, the Anna Camp's son. He gets lifted
Creepy
up
kid.
and impaled onto the bar tap so that the bar starts flowing out of his mouth, or the beer, I should say, starts flowing out of his mouth when he's hanging up dead.
I thought this was like a good fun kill, but it doesn't really feel like the kind of thing you normally see in like a Scream movie. Like, I don't know, like it feels like maybe more like something like Art or Freddy or like someone would do that's like, a killer that's having a bit more fun and stuff, where like, I don't know, I feel like Ghostface is usually more about like getting the job done, and you know what I mean? It's not like usually taking the time to be like clever or funny or something.
Yeah, and this comes after the other girl, Chloe, dies, because I was noting like where the hell is Lucas, because he disappears for like extended time while there's a whole stalking sequence with her, and then he just kind of shows up as if he's been in the bathroom for like 20 minutes. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't know.
And I don't know if I even remember how Chloe died. I remember she's kind of like walking around, like it almost felt like Jurassic Park or something, like when they're hiding from like the raptors.
Yeah, she's hiding behind
like,
the bar. She eventually dies because she goes through a window, and then you see that she's landed in such a way that there's glass in her face.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was a window. It was glass anyway, whatever the glass was. But it didn't strike me as super memorable either. And then Mindy and Chad, they just kind of like realize they're locked in, go after the killer, and then they both get slashed a little bit, and then that's just them out of the movie because the killer doesn't focus on them, which again is just like, oh, we don't want to kill these likable characters off because we might want to bring them back in Scream 8. So, but it's like they had nothing to do. They talked to the other kids about like who the killer might be for a couple of scenes, and that was it. They had nothing in this movie, which is a shame because they're far more likable than all these other characters because they had two movies where they were given material to build up. Having said that, Chad should have died in the last one, not because I didn't like him, but because they stabbed him so goddamn much that when he showed up alive at the end, it just felt so spineless. But that was a complaint for 6, not this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been a thing with, the last couple of...
We do it again in this one, Tim.
Oh yeah. But yeah, they definitely feel like too... beholden to like not killing their characters off, and I understand, especially with the last two movies, again, like these are characters that I grew quite fond of and stuff, so it would be sad to see him go, but I feel like that's kind of what you got to do with this movie, and then it's and especially like I feel like Gail should have probably died at some
last
point.
One,
like
probably
the last one. Yeah. And then as much as I do like Chad as well, but yeah, he I mean he probably should have died in the 5th movie because he got like really stabbed in that one as well too.
Yeah, it happened twice. Yeah, but the last one I remember, there was 2 ghost faces at the same time, just stabbing the shit out of him, and I'm like, okay, so he's dead, and then he's like, oh, miraculous, he's alive at the end, and they do the same thing here with Joel McHale, where he was pretty dead, but then he gets dragged out during the final showdown, and he's lying there, sort of like helping untie the daughter's restraints, kind of thing. And he seems to be fine at the end, so I don't know.
So then there's like a lot of chasing through the streets and stuff. The boyfriend ends up getting killed. He pops up again
so quickly as well. Like he just like he pops up and says, you know what, I'm sorry I hit you. I thought it was you, but the killer's been chasing me. And he's like, it's okay, I'll get you out of here. And then immediately the killer just kind of like shows up and kills him very, very quickly.
And then, Tatum gets into the mom's coffee shop. And then this was another thing that, you'd seen a lot of in the trailer where she ends up getting a gun, from the safe. And then Sydney's like, can't really reach her in time, but she can check the security footage on her phone and kind of guide her to like where to shoot.
It's a Halloween Resurrection like.
That's true. Yeah. Again, this like, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say so there's a whole thing here where she's hiding in the coffee shop and the killer doesn't know she's there, but then the phone rings and the killer turns around. And notably, the big thing is that Tatum knew the code to get in because her mother's probably told her the alarm code or whatever. But then the killer does it as well. The killer knows the code, and I never got the impression from and this is with hindsight later, that Anna Camp knew. Or that she worked in the coffee shop. I thought she was there as a customer. Maybe she just watched as someone did it at some time. I don't know, but I thought that was a clue.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's a clue. Someone knows the code. But it didn't matter that much in the end. So
I mean, I couldn't really care less, but I did think the same thing. Like, that seems a bit weird.
Yeah, there's an extended sequence though, because like Tatum's like crying, holding, I don't know how to use the gun, and like Sydney's like, I can't get there in time, I'm just gonna have to talk you through this, turn off the safety, do this. And then she's like, hey, he's standing right there, shoot through the wall, and you need to shoot him in the head, make sure you shoot him in the head, that's important. And then obviously she doesn't, and everyone coalesces. The daughter gets kidnapped, and then Sydney gets a call saying, hey, we're at your house, blah blah blah, come alone, don't tell the police, blah blah. And then the showdown happens where they unmask. Although, not to gloss over the walk to, because it ends up being outside, they kind of frame it like the start of the first movie where there's like the daughter's in the chair, kind of like the boyfriend was in the opening of Scream 1. But before she gets there, she goes through the house, and on the TV screen up comes Stu, right, talking to her. And obviously, like, this does turn out to be all fake, and it's AI and it's deep fakes and whatnot. But obviously, I was like, does it make sense that Stu is older? Well, the killers wanted them to think that he was really there, so he would be older. So they have like made him look older, right? So I was willing to accept that from a logical point of view. Is like, no, he's supposed to be 30 years older because he would be. But when they're doing this and she's walking through the house, it starts turning into different people. It turns into the killer from 2, Billy's mother, and she's also older. And I'm like, well, at this point, it's clearly fake. Why would you bother making her older? And obviously the answer is because we just shot the actor as they are now. But then the one that really bugged me with, though, because she looks older. She was already kind of pretty late middle aged in Scream 2, so it didn't really stick out as much. It cuts to someone who I only knew who it was because he said, "Hey sis," because I would not have known this was the killer from 3. I cannot believe we got AI Scream 3 killer in this. And then for some reason it turns out to David Arquette, and I'm like, why are you doing Dewey? It's all been killers up until this point. It felt like, oh, David Arquette agreed to do a cameo, so we'll use him even though he doesn't fit the theme of this all been past killers. I don't know, so lame.
Yeah. It's stupid. It just feels like dumb fan service. And then, like, I mean, I'm not a like tech genius, so maybe this is like the easiest thing in the world to do. But like, I understand that this guy's really good at AI, but I'm like, okay, but he's also like it feels like he's a wizard or something that can like turn on any electronic device in the house and like instantly have like the video playing on it. You know what I mean? Like it's like, all right, I don't know. It's like maybe a step too far or whatever. Like
yeah, for me, it's just the cheapness of the fan service of it. It's so like, oh, cheap pop for this face, cheap pop for this face. Like we're going to show every killer again. Well, not every, but you know, a handful of them, and it's like, all right. Okay, I'm so excited to be reminded by Scream 3, something that no one ever talks about. And this is one of the things of this franchise.
They couldn't afford Emma Roberts.
She's a bigger star now, to be fair. So yeah, they probably couldn't. But this is a bit of a problem with this franchise and always having to like tie the killers back into the other killers in some way, and that's why some of it's a convoluted mess. But it's so funny to me how some of it just gets forgotten about because we don't want to talk about it, right? And that includes the movie makers. Like, no one's talking about the fact that, oh, Cindy's mum was an actress and there was a killer that actually inspired the original killers in the first movie. Everyone's just forgotten about that. No one cares. So it's so weird having them pop up. And it's like, oh, yeah, I guess that's all still canon, technically, but like, you know, it's kind of wild just how much of this stuff you just kind of have to forget. Otherwise, it just feels like too much to think about. I know. So yeah, did not like any of this. And then the showdowns, whatever. Like the daughter gets untied. Like the other killer, the guy who worked at the hospital, the AI wizard, he gets shot in the head by Cindy immediately. He's just gone, and it becomes just Cindy versus Anna Camp. They run through the construction part of the house. The daughter ends up showing up to help save the day, solidifying that she also may be a badass now. And they do the whole thing where the daughter, you know, shoots her, Anna Camp goes down, and Cindy's like, oh no, you've got to shoot her in the head. And then they turn around and she's already left. Even though there was a pool of blood spilling from her, she's already moved. And when she comes running at them, for some reason, Anna Camp yells as she's running at them with a knife, like, oh, you know, I'm going to kill you, or whatever. So they both just turn around and just unload their guns, because they're both holding a gun at this point, into her face until her face is just mush. And then she's dead, and that's it. And this is not to, and you know, there's other bits in here, like when Cindy's like looking for her at first when they're chasing each other, like Anna Camp descends from the rooftop, like behind, like Michael Myers does in Halloween H2O, but it's behind the plastic sheet. And I'm like, is this woman doing like a lot of like extra? She must be at the gym a lot. She's doing a lot of like physical preparation for this killing business, because she's pulling off these extreme moves, all this aerobics and athletics stuff. But anyway, I mean, that's a bit nitpicky, admittedly, but the whole thing's just a bit of a... And that's the thing, but by the time we get to that final moment where she goes down and Cindy's like, oh, you have to shoot her in the head, did you not shoot her in the head? I'm like, okay, I get why you've said that, but you're actually treating it now like a mystical thing where they will come back to life if you don't shoot them in the head. Like, I get that there's a risk they might, you know, have a vest on. And I know what happened at the end of the first movie for the final kind of little joke of like, you know, they always come back for one more scare. But treating it like a fact that they're going to definitely come back the way she does was rubbing me the wrong way in this. It's like they were treating it like a vampire rule. Oh, you've got to, you can't invite them inside. They can't go out in the sunlight. You have to shoot them in the head. They'll get back up. Like, they're not zombies. Anyway.
I think at this point I was just really checked out of the movie. It's like, I guess when they're shooting them in the face, there's like some fun gore, but you know, I'm not really caring by this point.
Honestly, having like one of the old killers back as an undead like killer would be far more interesting to me than this whodunit bullshit. Like, I am so sick to death of who the killer is. Like, who's the killer? We have to all theorize who the killer is. Because at least then it's like, okay, he can be unstoppable, he can be this or that. Maybe we're not doing Scream anymore at that point, but you know, like, I would be happy for there just to be no more Scream, to be honest. I don't need more Scream movies.
Yeah, again, it's funny because after the last couple ones, I was so on board. I was like, yeah, like, bring it. Like, let's, you know, start pumping these babies out. But then, yeah, after this one, I'm like, no, let's just kill it at this point. I do not need any more.
And we're getting an 8-time. You know, this movie's making a lot of money. Unless it tanks, like, second weekend. Because I know the budget for this one kind of... It ballooned a bit because of like reshoots and rewrites and stuff like that. So maybe even with the opening weekend, it could still not be that great a performer. But if it doesn't drop significantly more than normal, then it'll probably be successful enough that they'll want another one. And at that point, I'm like, so what are we doing now? Like, in the same way that we always have to have McHale versus Laurie again, even when that's not the good idea for, say, the end of Halloween Ends. What are we doing? Sydney versus another Ghostface next time? Or are we actually going to treat it like Tatum's now the main character? Is Tatum going to be... And, like, I think that makes sense. And this is no shade on the actress or anything, but I didn't really like Tatum that much as a character. She's... Maybe because all the conflict with her mum just feels so forced that it's hard to like care about her or root for her in any way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to keep going with the character, it's a little less my concern. I think for me to be excited about a new one, you just really have to bring on a different creative team. Like I need a, give me an interesting writer and director, and then maybe I can get on board again. But yeah, if it's just gonna be like, Seven Part 2 and with everyone coming back and Williamson writing, directing and stuff again, I mean, obviously we'll see it for the show, but I'm not gonna be excited about it.
Also, can I say something else I'm sick of at this point? And I've not really liked it a lot, to be honest, since 2, really. But I'm so sick of this stab shit. Like, one of the big things that I didn't like about 3 was just how far they took it with, like, oh, we're making Stab 3 and we're doing all this stuff and we're doing all this meta stuff. Like, that was already like too far for me. And like in this movie, when they're bringing up the Stab movies and they're like, there's potentially something interesting to do with this idea of everyone knows her story because it was made into these movies, but I feel like they don't actually do anything that interesting with it, honestly. Like, and it feels like the same shit still happening that was happening in Scream 2. She's getting calls. She's, being careful. She knows how to use a gun, and she's always got a gun like in the car now because of potential danger. Like, she has all this stuff because one day it may happen again, and it's like, okay, fine. Like, it makes enough sense, but I'm not excited. Like, every time they start making references to Stab or all the Stab stuff in the house at the start, I'm like, this was a good one movie idea. It was an interesting idea for Scream 2 to have this idea that the Stab movie's out. But everything since then, honestly, every time Stab comes up, I'm just kind of like, I've more and more I've rolled my eyes at it, and at this point I just don't care anymore.
I forget if it was just like a rumor or something, but I feel like at one point they were saying that, I mean, maybe it never really got that far, but like that they were gonna do like an actual Stab movie, like, which I think could potentially be kind of interesting. Like, I don't know. I can't think of how many times that's been done. But I mean, I don't know. It might be more interesting than, again, just following up with these same characters again. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just kind of a miserable time. And then obviously everyone shows up at the end to like hug goodbye and Gail's going to let Mindy do the news report because she's grown as a person, apparently. All right, sure. I don't know when that happened in the movie, but fair enough. I'll take your word for it.
And again, a thing that has not been established in the last movies, where it's like, oh, she wants to be a reporter. Okay, whatever. And then I think it's kind of funny. She has a heart-to-heart with Tatum about I actually named you after my friend because she was so strong. She wasn't just a victim, which to me it's it was kind of a weird leap in logic that she made. Where she's she named me after this loser that got killed. It's even if you don't really know her story, wouldn't you think that oh yeah, she named me after this friend that she loved,
Yeah, that was also something that rubbed me the wrong way, was this idea of oh, you named me after the victim, and I'm like, that's not how she thought about it. I'm pretty sure she named you after someone who meant something to her who died, and that's why she used her name. So this idea that she's whining about it is so weird.
It's anytime you name someone after a dead relative or something, they're just oh, why'd you name me after someone that died? That's so lame. How people think about it.
I was named after someone who died when they were 19. It's not like I was a teenager going, oh, I'm going to die in the next couple of years because they named me after this asshole. Doesn't make any sense.
I was named after a horse, so.
I don't know what to say to that, to be honest. But obviously, as far as the stars of Friends go, Courteney Cox has had a much more successful horror franchise than Jennifer Aniston. I think we can all agree on that, if nothing else.
Tough to say. Jennifer Aniston was in one particularly good horror movie, so.
Are you telling me
compare.
Are you telling me that Leprechaun is better than Scream? Is that what you're telling me?
I mean, if we're just comparing the first movies, I'd give it to Scream, but like overall franchises put together, that might be a tough one.
Yeah, because Leprechaun in the Hood is so much better than Scream 6 or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. We can leave it there. I think we're done. All right, Tim, let's do it. What are you rating Scream 7 out of 10?
I feel like while I was watching the movie, for most of it, I was probably hovering at about a 5, where I'm like, I'm not really loving this, but it's fine, whatever. There's a few good things here and there, and then the ending just really bugged me, and it's one of those things where, yeah, like, you know, after like you get out of the movie theater and like, I mean, that was kind of bad, right? But I mean, I guess I like this or that piece or this kill or whatever. And then you think about it for a few days. The more you think about it, I'm like, yeah, but then this kind of sucked, and they really whipped this. So I'm definitely lower on it now. I'm wondering if I want to go like lower than a 4.
Core 4?
The core 4. Because I don't think the movie's terrible. It's just, I mean, there's some stuff that's legitimately bad about it, but, you know, overall, it's watchable. It's, you know, kind of got like that corporate boardroom bland, like, take on it where, you know, it's not trying to do anything too, like, out there and trying to play it safe, but I mean, I don't know, you know, if that makes it worse, then, you know, if it was just like right out bad, but doing something crazy or whatever. So, and then like, yeah, talking about it, I feel like I really don't have like much good to say. So I don't know. I think I might even go just a smidge lower than that and do like 3.5. Yeah, because I don't know. Again, the only thing I can really think of is like, you know, there's a few decent kills. You know, like Neve Campbell and most of the older people I'd say are like, you know, good performers, like, you know, but yeah, like none of the newer cast really did anything or stood out to me or whatever. And I can't say I'm, you know, Williamson's directing really stood out and had like any cool, insane shots or like, you know, it's not like the music was good, like, you know, yeah. So I don't know. I thought maybe going into it that would be a bit more like down the middle or, you know, but I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I'm just like, yeah, there really isn't much redeeming about this.
Yeah, I mean, I've said a few times on this show that this year I'm waging war on mediocrity.
Yeah.
And this is definitely, I mean, at its best, it's mediocre. And then there's things like the fan service with all the cameos towards the end and stuff like that. That's just like mind-numbingly bad. But, you know, you're right. It doesn't do anything to rock the boat. And not just in like a sort of real world, like, oh, political way, but like even just in like a creative way, it does nothing to rock the boat. It's so by the numbers and nothing meaningful happens. And the conclusion to the movie, which is, oh, Cindy's going to open up and talk to her daughter about something, it doesn't feel like we've actually earned any sort of new insight or any ideas or anything. It just feels like something that works as an ending and no more. And then, you know, the killers and their motives being just absolute nonsense, honestly. Yeah, and I don't think the structure of the movie is very good. I don't think it has a good sense of escalation throughout. It feels like no one's that concerned about a killer, and then all of a sudden, everyone is just kind of in the final sort of chases of their characters. And it feels like we wait too long to get to that point for some of them. But regardless, yeah, I don't know. I feel like going as low as a 3 implies something a bit more painful than what this actually is.
Yeah.
It just has nothing to say and has no purpose, though, in the fan service. So, so part of me does want to go with a 4, but I feel icky giving it a better rating, as if I liked it more than you did, because I don't think I did.
No, I mean it's weird. Like, I don't know. I feel like 4 might be something that still had some redeeming qualities, or that there were some aspects that I enjoyed, and again, I'm just really finding trouble finding stuff I enjoyed about it. When I agree with you. Like when you say it's not painful. Like I wasn't, chewing my arm off. Like like, oh, when is this like gonna be over as I'm watching it or whatever. But
yeah. I mean, it's boring. Like I was definitely feeling it was dull, but it wasn't like, like. I mean, this review's not come out yet, but it's not as bad as Strangers Chapter 2, just to put it in comparison with something.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'll go with... you know what, I'll just agree with your score. Why am I humming and hawing? I'll just... 3.5. That sounds good. That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So...
Again, kind of surprising. Like, I didn't think it was going to be amazing or anything, but I thought it would be a bit more like... Oh, yeah, it's kind of... It's not horrible, but, it has a few things here and there. And then, just the more I think about it, it's like, no, not really. I think you're right, like, when you say, like, it really doesn't have anything to say.
No. It has nothing. It has nothing going for it in terms of, like, a point. Like, and obviously all sequels, and even all movies to an extent, and in some way are a product. The reason why the movie gets funded is because someone sees it as a product. But, directors care, actors care, people, the creative side care. But some sequels do feel like just corporate products, and this feels like a product. This feels like the next Scream product, not a movie that has like an idea or passion behind it, So, yeah. It's worse than most. Like, some people are saying it's the worst one. I think there's an argument to say it is. I think I personally dislike 3 a bit more for some reason. Maybe it's just because like I expected more out of Wes Craven, so it's more disappointing than this one is.
I think, like, on a technical level, maybe 3 is worse, but if I had to rewatch something, I probably would go with 3 just because there's a campiness, cheesiness factor that makes it a bit more entertaining to me. But, yeah, I mean, I don't have much, like, love for 3.
Yeah,
anyway,
maybe it just stings more because that was the first true disappointment of the franchise. So that was where, like, there's no going back now. Now there's a really shit one. So even if this is technically worse, I still kind of have a bit more disdain for 3. But, hard to recommend. And it's like, I own all the Scream movies, and this is one of these ones where I'm like, I don't know if I want to have this, but if 8 happens and it somehow like does end up being like good, like if there's a good one in the future, well, I need to complete the set. I can't be skipping 1 or 2 of them. Like, I have to have all of them, but...
Yeah. I mean, this is one... I agree, like, with franchises that I like, I do want to have them at my fingertips in case I ever want to do a big rewatch. But, I'm not pre-ordering a steelbook or anything for this. This is one where, like, I'll put it on my, digital wish list, and then when it goes on sale for like $5 or whatever, I'll be like, all right, fine.
Yeah, no, I get it. Anyway, that is that. That is the Scream 7 review. It's not good, guys. To put it simply, not good, Bob. Not good. But yeah, you can support Screams After Midnight and get more from us by going over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV or become a YouTube member. The main things you get from that, other than a little bit of early access, just a little bit, you get the bonus episode, which is most months we'll do a bonus episode, usually something silly or something we wouldn't usually make time for in the main show. So you can check out that. And then the other big thing we do is Even More Streams, where we record most weeks. We'll do like an extra segment where we talk about maybe some trailers. We'll do a little top 5 or just do something, maybe something was in the news that we feel was worth talking about. And those can range from anything from 15 to like 40 minutes depending on what the thing is. And every so often there'll be a special one where we go like 2 hours, but that's like a once or twice a year type of thing. But if that all sounds fun, you can go check out that and get more Streams After Midnight. But that is the show, everyone. That is Screams After Midnight, and that is our review of Scream 7. So thank you once again. Next week on the show we should have another new release because The Bride is out. And it's not the debut of Maggie Gyllenhaal as a director. She did like a drama, I think, a couple of years ago. But it's the first movie I've seen from her that she's directed, and I like her as an actress, so I'm very curious to see how this turns out. So join us for that next week on Streams After Midnight. But once again, thank you for listening or watching. We always appreciate it. Thanks to everyone who already supports us via Patreon or wherever else. It is greatly appreciated. We'll see you next time. Keep watching scary movies. Goodbye.